Tonight on Reporting Scotland, as the European Union issues advice on preparing for a no-deal Brexit, we hear business fears. A lawyer's in hospital after being stabbed in the face and body near a Glasgow court in a targeted attack. A judge urges Rangers chairman Dave King to settle his £11 million dispute with the takeover panel or face being in contempt of court. Anger in the Highlands at council plans to close public toilets throughout the region.
When the toilets weren't open last year, there was a lot of not very nice things behind the toilets, and it's disgusting.
Also in the programme, we're at the Open, where it looks as if there won't be a Scot through to the weekend for the first time in more than 10 years. Good evening. The Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has told this programme that a no-deal Brexit could cause huge disruption to business. He said the UK wanted to avoid that scenario but was preparing for it as one possible outcome. The SNP say leaving the European Union without agreement would be a colossal political failure. Here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
In Linwood, this car dealer is worried about the uncertainty that comes with Brexit. He wants to know what future trading terms between the UK and the EU will be.
The car industry within the UK receives 1,100 trucks from the EU every single day to make sure that our production lines work on time and our consumers get the cars that they have purchased. So it is imperative to the future of the UK automotive industry that we have a tariff-free zone.
Morning, Julie. How are you? Nice to see you.
In Edinburgh, the Foreign Secretary, welcoming an Australian delegation, is not able to give guarantees.
Foreign Secretary, is Chequers the UK's final offer on Brexit? Is a no-deal scenario now more likely than not? And would that be as catastrophic as some suggest?
Well, we don't want a no-deal scenario. It would potentially cause huge disruption to businesses on both sides of the channel, and we are working very hard to avoid that. But we also have to recognise that it is a possibility.
This is where you need nerves of steel.
In Northern Ireland, the Prime Minister is holding out for a deal that will avoid border controls with the Republic and a new customs border in the Irish Sea. And she insists that requires the EU to evolve its position. In Brussels, the EU's chief negotiator is promising more talks with the UK on the Irish border issue next week.
We are committed to protecting Ireland and Northern Ireland against the consequences of Brexit.
He's also confirmed preparations are being stepped up for all possible outcomes, including a no deal.
A no-deal Brexit would be devastating. It has an impact on the food and drink that we consume, on opportunities for young people, devastating for jobs in the economy. And what a no-deal ultimately represents is a colossal political failure.
Back in Edinburgh, the Australians say they're keen to strike a post-Brexit trade deal with the UK.
This new level of cooperation that we've mapped out today, the very best days of the Australia-UK relationship lie ahead of us.
There's no word on how quickly a free trade agreement might take effect or how much economic damage it might offset if there's no deal between the UK and the EU. Glenn Campbell, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Well, let's go to Westminster and our political correspondent Nick Eardley. So Nick, after quite a week, what's your view of where we are now?
Sally, at some points this week, the Prime Minister must have felt a bit like an exhausted marathon runner stuck in the middle of a game of dodgeball, summoning all her energy to try and get to the finishing line, in this case, the summer recess, but also having to avoid obstacles and surprises being thrown at her from all angles. A few things I think worth bearing in mind tonight. Firstly, the Prime Minister's position in the top job appears to be fairly safe in the short term. Yes, there were rumours of leadership challenges. Yes, there were wafer-thin votes. But for now, Theresa May appears to be fairly safe. The question, and if I can labour that marathon analogy a bit further, is how much damage has been done? How long will it take for the government to really recover? Because this, the document that they spent 2 years working on, the plan lies in a very fragile state tonight. There are some in the Conservative Party who remain furious about it and who will spend the next weeks and months trying their damnedest to change it. The events of the last few days have done nothing to reconcile those views. If anything, they've made the divisions in the party even starker. You heard in Glenn's piece there from the EU's chief Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier. He said tonight that he has real questions over this, but at least it gives something for the two sides to talk about. He also noted, however, that the debate here in Westminster goes on. The race still has some way to run.
Nick Eardley, thank you very much. Farmers' leaders are warning that some of Scotland's soft fruit growers may leave the industry because of a shortage of workers from Eastern Europe. Tons of strawberries have been left to rot this summer because there aren't enough pickers. The UK government's now being urged to reintroduce a scheme to attract seasonal workers from abroad, as Andrew Anderson reports.
We'll pick it for 6 weeks. So checking the rasps on their Perthshire farm. It's a living and a life for Jen and Rowan Marshall. But the shortage of workers from abroad to harvest this fruit has these young farmers worried for their future.
We're not hitting the panic button, but just now we are looking towards the future and think, where is the labour force going to come from?
I think as a horticulture of soft fruits in Scotland is the jewel in the crown of agriculture. It's well known that the raspberries in this area are the best due to the long light, and it would be really sad to see young people like us sort of not invest in it because we can't. Our hands are tied. Every Scottish fruit farm relies on workers like these from Eastern Europe to pick the crop. But their numbers are falling, and that's meant big problems this year. On farms across Scotland, fruit like this is being left to rot in the ground. Farmers were hit by a double whammy this year. They were already finding it difficult to recruit Eastern European workers. Then there was an explosion in the crop brought on by the hot weather earlier this month. Farmers are worried Brexit will mean even fewer workers coming here. They're urging the UK government to bring in a scheme without delay to address the problem. Without it, would some think of quitting?
I think they will, because it's not only the certainty of the workers coming here, it's the certainty for the growers actually to put the crop in and to keep that crop running. There's a huge investment goes into the soft fruit industry in Scotland, and to not have the confidence that it's going to be harvested is quite a scary predicament to be in.
Will they continue to ripen a little bit?
These MPs were helping with the harvest today. A good effort, but not a patch on the workers who are in these fields every day.
The issue seems to be at number 10 and within the Home Office, and for some reason they seem to believe that this is all about immigration. It's not. People come here under licence. If they break that licence, they'll be sent back. They come for 6 months of the year to help farmers in places like this to get the crop to the market. Surely we could put forward some sort of scheme. We had it in the past, we could do it again.
The UK government says it's working hard to ensure the labour needs of the agriculture sector are met. Meanwhile, Scotland's farmers are looking ahead to the autumn harvest, unsure if they'll have the workers they need. Andrew Anderson, reporting Scotland, Perthshire.
Police say a lawyer has been left scarred for life after being stabbed outside Glasgow Sheriff Court in what's been described as a targeted attack. He's now in hospital where he's undergone surgery and is said to be in a serious but stable condition. Our reporter Aileen Clark is at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital for us now. What more can you tell us, Aileen?
Well, police are saying this was a terrifying attack on the 63-year-old solicitor. Now, they haven't named him, but as you can understand, this has been very much the talk of legal circles today. And I understand that the man who was attacked is Joe Shields. Now, he is a criminal defence lawyer in Glasgow. He has been for a great many years. He is well known amongst the legal profession in Glasgow, and he has offices in Carlton Place. And it seems that he was leaving his office last night along with a colleague round about 6:30. It's quite close to the Sheriff Court. There's lots of lawyers' offices there because it's quite handy for the Sheriff Court. And as he left his office, he was attacked from behind by a man with a knife. Now, he was stabbed several times. He has a significant number of injuries to his face and body, and he's had to undergo surgery here at the hospital. Now, we understand his condition is now thought to be serious but stable, but he has sustained very serious injuries indeed, and he will be scarred for life. And what are the police saying tonight? Well, the police are saying that they believe that this was not a random attack. They say that they believe Mr. Shields was the intended target of this attack. Now, they say the man that carried this out is very dangerous and he must be caught. And as well as carrying out the usual inquiries they would do in a case like this, looking at CCTV, for example, talking to people who were in the area at the time, the attacker was seen, for example, to leave in a white car. As well as that, I think it's fair to say they will have to also look at the cases that Mr. Shields has been involved in recently to see if within that, within his work, there lies any clue as to who carried out this attack and why.
Aileen Clark in Glasgow, thank you very much. An Ayrshire man has been jailed for life after stabbing his wife to death in what was described as a frenzied attack. David Payne from Kilmarnock murdered Alexis Flynn at a flat in the town in April because he thought she was having an affair. At the time, the 51-year-old was barred by a court order from approaching Miss Flynn after allegedly assaulting her. At the High Court in Glasgow, Payne was sentenced to a minimum of 14.5 years. An investigation is underway after asbestos was found at a school in Aberdeen and a worker possibly exposed to it. It was found during maintenance at Bridge of Dawn Academy last week. The area has now been sealed off. Aberdeen City Council has confirmed the material is asbestos. The Health and Safety Executive has been informed.
A lot of people were contaminated by it. They were allowed to continue working, they were allowed to go home, their clothes were not removed or anything else. Any vehicle that they were travelling in has been used maybe by others. Serious issues arise from this. But we've been complaining for quite some time now about this, and the management have allegedly been looking into things. But it appears here yet again that they have failed in their obligation to their own employees.
A judge at the Court of Session has urged Rangers chairman Dave King to settle his £11 million dispute with the takeover panel or face being in contempt of court. Here's our business and economy editor Douglas Fraser.
Well, Dave King took control of Rangers International Football Club, the firm that owns Ibrox and the club that plays in it, nearly 4 years ago, working with 3 other investors to secure that controlling stake. Now, the law requires that an individual or a group in that position have to offer to buy out the minority shareholders. Mr. King did not do so. The law's policed by the takeover panel and it's pursued him through the courts to ensure that he complies. He's continued to defy the court orders. He's been told he has to put the £11 million this could cost him into a UK bank account. It's not sufficient to have it in an account in his homeland now of South Africa. Well, yesterday he issued a start-of-season message to Rangers fans, including reference to this case, saying the Court of Session's rulings were strange and that they added unnecessary delay with no end in sight. Well, at a Court of Session hearing today in Edinburgh, with Mr. King absent, the counsel for the takeover panel raised concerns about the chairman's tactics. The judge said that however he complies, he must do so and to stop making excuses. Well, another hearing in this case has been set for the 16th of August, and if Dave King still hasn't complied with the ruling then, well, he could face a summons for proceedings for contempt of court.
It's just past 19 minutes to 7. You're watching BBC Reporting Scotland. A reminder of tonight's top story. Businesses voice their fears over Brexit as the Foreign Secretary says the UK wants to avoid a no deal but has to be prepared for it. And still to come, the lifeboat that served the Murray coastline for more than 30 years returns to its former home in Buckie after a painstaking restoration. There's growing anger across the Highlands as the local authority press ahead with plans to close a number of public toilets. A local MSP has labelled Highland Council's plans as an absolute scandal. Locals say that human waste is already being left alongside the busy NC 500 route. The council wants communities to take on the toilets as assets. Ian McInnes reports.
The numbers visiting this part of the world are booming, and who can blame them? But if you need to spend a penny, things could be about to change. 29 public toilets across the Highlands are under threat, including those open seasonally at Achmelvik Beach.
When the toilets weren't open last year, there was a lot of not very nice things behind the toilets, and it's disgusting. The tourists are concerned, and I think it would stop a lot of them from coming to our areas if they can't stop somewhere and then use the facilities as well.
This proposal would see a major reduction in the number of public toilets on this part of the North Coast 500, but the local council is encouraging communities to take on these amenities and run them for themselves.
When we were faced with paying off street cleaners or paying off special needs assistants in schools, when we had the opportunity to look at it this way, I think it made a lot more sense.
The consultation on the closures has been extended until the end of October, but many feel more time and consideration is needed.
I would agree that there are probably ways in which we could reduce the cost of running these toilets, but with a bit more time and with a bit more consultation, we could very easily get to a point where we'd have a really, really positive message to sell. We could be extremely organised. We could actually be charging for this and have it really well operated.
For people like Ian, who used to transport fish across the region, there are other reasons for concern.
I would say that the council, none of these guys had bowel problems in their lives, because if they did, they wouldn't make that decision. I used to drive the fish lorries out of here, and for a period of my life, about 15 years ago, I had a chronic bout of ulcerative colitis, which I depended on public toilets a lot with. You know, you can imagine driving a lorry and having a bowel problem. It's not easy. Not a very nice thing to talk about, but it is a real factor, a part of life.
The council accept that mistakes have been made in the process, but insist that communities themselves need to play a part in keeping toilets in their area open.
Now, hands up, we handled this badly in the beginning. We got it absolutely wrong the way the information went out, but we need to move on from there. If Sutherland is to thrive, not just survive, then it's going to take the communities working with us. I'm sorry people don't like it. I'm not doing it to annoy them, but really, guys, got to step up.
But communities say that the toilets in their current state are a liability and not an asset. However things pan out, the toilet network on the route looks set to be very different in the coming years. Ian McInnes, reporting Scotland in Sutherland.
Visitor numbers to Scotland were up by 17% last year, while spending rose by almost a quarter. That's according to the Office for National Statistics. The weakened pound since the Brexit vote 2 years ago helped boost numbers, particularly for holidays. Overseas holidaymakers in Scotland increased by a number of percent there. I think I've got the number wrong there. And their spending rose by nearly a fifth. Business travel also rose, with spending by those from other parts of the European Union more than doubling. Research suggests the Scottish property market has seen a slowdown in the number of people moving home this year. A review by the Bank of Scotland found that 15,300 people moved home in the first half of 2018, down by 900 compared with the same period last year. The number of first-time buyers also dropped by nearly 1,000. The average price paid by those moving home is now £209,000. Campaigners opposed to Aberdeen Football Club's plans for a new stadium have submitted their legal challenge. The No Kingsford Stadium group has long protested the plans, citing concerns about traffic and loss of greenbelt. Planning permission was granted for the £50 million stadium and training complex earlier this year. The campaign group says it's now seeking a judicial review. Day 2 of the Open Championship at Carnoustie is drawing to a close, and there could be a glimmer of hope for the Scottish amateur Sam Locke, who could become the only Scot to make it through to the weekend. Meanwhile, for one former champion golfer, there was a special moment. Let's cross now to Jane Lewis at Carnoustie. Jane.
Thank you very much, Sally. Good evening from now a glorious Carnoustie. It was all different earlier today, of course. But before we get to the Scots, let me just fill you in on the leaderboard. It's the Americans who are in charge here at Carnoustie at the moment. So the overnight leader, Kevin Kistner, and former Open champion Zach Johnson are both in the clubhouse on 6 under. As for the Scots then, it's been a fairly disappointing day, although as you alluded to there could be a glimmer of hope for that young amateur Sam Locke. He might just sneak into the weekend. We'll bring you news of that in a moment. But for another Scot who knows all about winning the Claret Jug, well, today was an emotional one.
And this man has seen and done it all before.
An emotional moment, the last time we're likely to see Sandy Lyle at an Open. The crowd cheered him up the 18th, and in return, one final Open birdie from the 1985 champion.
He's got it on line. Oh, it's magnificent.
I was in a cloud nine walking down the 18th. It's quite a spectacular view to come down there. I've still got a wet tissue here. No, I managed to stay away from crying, but definitely a lump in the throat. Yeah, definitely a lump.
Lyle finishing 9 over was never near to making the cut. It was also a frustrating day for this Scot. Russell Knox finished 4 over. After confessing that playing with hero Tiger Woods got to him yesterday, today he said that wasn't an excuse.
No, I didn't feel anything like that today. The conditions were so hard. Yeah, I was over it. Tiger, who's that? But, I mean, no, I didn't feel any of that today. I mean, I think I got that out of the way yesterday. And, I mean, the conditions were so difficult starting out today in the rain. And, I mean, you're just trying to put one foot in front of the other.
Speaking of Tiger, he found trouble, but isn't out of things yet, finishing level. Earlier, the weather made for tough conditions at Carnoustie. Hiding from the rain wasn't easy. From the 5 Scots in this open field, it was the amateur Sam Locke who looked like he might sneak into the weekend. Despite a run of 3 birdies on the back 9, as things stand at 3 over, he's not made it.
Oh yes, get in there.
You're coming here to enjoy it and to learn, and you know, obviously it's a really different experience for me, playing in front of all the crowds and the cameras and things, but I feel like I dealt with it really well, despite feeling pretty nervous for quite a lot of it. But you're going to be nervous and you're meant to be, so I was expecting that, but I felt like I dealt with it quite well, yeah.
Someone else dealing with things well is the overnight leader Kevin Kisner, the American among the leaders in the clubhouse on 6 under.
Well, let me just tell you that Scotland's Scott Jimison is still out in the course. He's 8 over after 17 holes. And let me try and bring you some clarity on the amateur Sam Locke situation. He hadn't made it, but he is now in 67th, tied in 67th place, and could now make the cut for the weekend. The magic number for making the cut is tied 70th place. So at the minute he is through. But of course, there's another couple of hours golf to play out there on the Carnoustie links. There are still golfers finishing off their second round, so that could all change. At the minute though, he's tied in 67th place, so he's through. But as I say, we won't get confirmation of that for another couple of hours. But if he makes it, what an achievement from that young man.
Absolutely nail-biting evening. Thanks very much, Jane Lewis there. A lifeboat which was discovered rotting away in an English dockyard has been painstakingly restored and returned to its Murray stomping ground. The vessel, the Laura Moncur, served the Buckie area between 1961 and 1984. It's now on a coastline tour of the UK. Rachel Bell reports.
Right, here we go.
Stepping into the past.
Oh, it's been a long time.
After more than 30 years and a painstaking restoration project, the crew of the Laura Moncur are back on board.
Very emotional to see her back. I thought I'd never see her back. Yeah, just a good girl. I'm very happy, as you can see.
Kenny Farquhar served on 3 Buckie lifeboats during his time in the RNLI.
They did exactly the same job, preserve life at sea. So it doesn't matter to say, oh, that's little. It doesn't matter. She did her job. Saved over 40, 50 lives. A lot of bad times as well, though. Some people you didn't get, some you picked up. So you got a lot of horrible times as well.
The boat was involved in a rescue and recovery operation during the 1970 Fraserburgh lifeboat disaster. It brought home the sole survivor. Its return to Buckie has been made possible by boat enthusiast Mark Waltham, who found it rotting away in an English dockyard. He spent 2.5 years restoring her to her former glory.
It's very special that, you know, not special that I brought her here. Anybody could have brought her here, but the fact that she's, you know, served this town for so many years, it's nice that there's so many guys still remember her.
Today is a hugely significant day for the crew and for the wider community here in Buckie. After many, many years and lots of hard work, the Laura Moncur is finally home. Rachel Bell reporting Scotland's Buckie.
Now let's find out all we need to know about the weekend weather. Kirsteen.
Thank you very much, Sally. Good evening to you. Well, it's felt like quite a significant time ago since we needed the brollies out. Quite a dreich day today. We really did need the brollies. As we head into this evening, though, the main body of that rain has now cleared into the North Sea. Largely dry conditions, some evening sunshine, especially across the north. And as we go through tonight, it'll be fairly cloudy, misty and murky. The odd spot of drizzle around the northeast at times. A mild night, temperatures no lower than around 10 or 11 Celsius, with light winds across the board. So tomorrow dawns with a good deal of cloud, rather murky conditions, though this will tend to thin and break as we go through the morning, giving some decent spells of brightness and sunshine for many of us. During the afternoon, however, cloud will increase again across the northwest, and that will be followed by some outbreaks of mostly light and patchy rain. So a closer look tomorrow afternoon across the Northern Isles and the northeast. Still a good deal of cloud around here, some breaks giving us some spells of brightness and sunshine. Some decent spells of sunshine to come across the likes of Angus, Perthshire, Fife, in through the Central Belt and through southern Scotland. With light winds and highs of 22 or 23 Celsius, it'll feel pleasant in the sunshine. Argyll northwestwards, though, a lot of cloud, and there will be some outbreaks of light and patchy rain to come across the Western Isles, highs here of around 16 or 17 Celsius. For hill walking and climbing tomorrow, certainly really quite a miserable start. Low cloud, 300 to 600 metres, 1,000 to 2,000 feet, tending to lift as we go through the day. Perhaps some light rain across the more northwestern ranges during the afternoon, the odd spot of drizzle for the more eastern ranges. Fair weather for the Trossachs and the Galloway Hills. Temperatures of around 9 to 15 Celsius and winds around 15 to 20 miles per hour typically. If you're heading to Carnoustie tomorrow for the Open Championship, after a fairly miserable start, I think it'll turn brighter during the day with some spells of sunshine. Highs of 19 or 20 Celsius with light winds across the board. Tomorrow evening then, and that rain will spread through Skye, the Northwest Highlands, eventually reaching the Northern Isles and the Argyll area, otherwise dry with a good deal of cloud. Looking ahead to Sunday, again cloudy conditions across much of the west, with some heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain across the northwest. Further east though, drier with some spells of sunshine, and in that sunshine temperatures will peak around 24 Celsius, a good deal cooler under the cloud and the rain. That's the forecast. Sally.
Thanks very much, Kirsteen. Now, a reminder of tonight's top story. And the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, says a no-deal Brexit could cause huge disruption to business. But he said the UK wanted to avoid that scenario. The SNP says it would be a colossal political failure. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'll be back with a late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, good evening.